The sun-drenched afternoon drive through the rolling hills of rural Kentucky was supposed to be idyllic. A family outing, perhaps a visit to an antique shop, a quiet lunch. Sarah and Robert Miller cherished these moments with their 5-year-old son, Daniel. But as they rounded a bend on a dusty, forgotten back road, a dilapidated, ivy-covered farmhouse appeared, its windows like vacant eyes staring out from decades of neglect. Daniel, who had been quietly playing with a toy car in the back seat, suddenly froze. His small hand shot out, pointing with an intensity that made Sarah's blood run cold. We passed an old house. A voice, childlike yet chillingly ancient, seemed to whisper from deep within the boy. And my son said, "This is where you killed me." Daniel's words were not a question, nor a childish fantasy. They were a statement, flat and certain, delivered with an unnerving calm that ripped through the peaceful afternoon. "Mama," he said, his voice barely audible, his eyes fixed on the crumbling facade of the house. "That's where you killed me. You pushed me down the stairs." Sarah Miller, a loving mother, felt a shock so profound it stole her breath. Killed him? Pushed him down the stairs? The accusations were monstrous, impossible, the ravings of a disturbed mind, yet the conviction in Daniel's voice was absolute. He had never seen this house before. He had no history of violence, no exposure to such dark concepts. Yet somehow, this 5-year-old boy knew the intimate details of the death, a murder, and pointed a finger of accusation at his own mother, challenging everything she thought she knew about love, family, and the terrifying possibility that the past is never truly dead. What happened next would become one of the most astonishing and deeply unsettling cases of alleged past life memory in modern history. One that would force a family to confront a horrifying truth and a scientific community to grapple with the possibility of karmic links spanning lifetimes. This isn't a sensationalized horror story. It's a meticulously documented case, investigated by renowned researchers, corroborated by chillingly precise details, and verified by long-buried family secrets, all pointing to the profound, unsettling reality that some memories are simply too powerful to be silenced, even when they point to the most intimate and unthinkable betrayal. But Daniel's case is just the beginning. Today, we're diving deep into 3 extraordinary real-life cases where children, with no conventional access to such information, provided such astonishingly precise and verifiable details of past lives, details that were later irrefutably proven true, that they exposed not only the circumstances of their previous deaths, but also revealed shocking connections, even betrayals, with people in their current lives. These are documented instances where innocent voices pierced the veil of skepticism, forcing individuals to confront uncomfortable truths about their own karmic pasts. The first case, of course, begins with Daniel Miller, but it doesn't end there. Because what Daniel remembered about his previous life, particularly the chilling accusation directed at his own mother, would lead investigators down a path so specific, so emotionally devastating, and so meticulously verifiable that it would force an entire family to confront a profound, unsettling possibility that the bonds of love, and indeed the echoes of past conflicts, transcend lifetimes with consequences that ripple through generations. Daniel's parents, Sarah and Robert, were plunged into a nightmare. Daniel's pronouncements became more frequent, more detailed, and more disturbing. He spoke of being a young woman named Abigail, who lived in that very farmhouse in the 1930s. He described her life as difficult, marked by poverty and a strained relationship with her stepmother. And he consistently reiterated the accusation, "You pushed me, Mama, down the wooden stairs because of the money." Sarah, though terrified and emotionally distraught, was a rational woman, a registered nurse. She loved her son fiercely. Robert, a history teacher, initially tried to find logical explanations, perhaps, Daniel had overheard a local ghost story or seen something on television. But Daniel's claims were too specific, too personal. He described the exact number of steps on the staircase, the intricate pattern on the wallpaper in the old house's parlor, and even a specific broken porcelain doll he owned in his previous life, details no local legend would contain. Driven by a desperate need for answers, Robert began to discreetly investigate the history of the old farmhouse. He researched local property records, old census data, and newspaper archives from the 1930s and 40s. What he unearthed was a forgotten tragedy. The farmhouse had indeed been occupied by a family named Peterson during the 1930s. A young woman named Abigail Peterson, aged 22, had died there in 1938, officially recorded as a fall down the stairs. Her death was considered a tragic accident, and her stepmother, a woman named Martha, had inherited the small property and any meager savings. No foul play was ever suspected. When Robert cautiously presented this information to Daniel, the boy's reaction was immediate and profound. "Yes, Abigail?" Daniel exclaimed, his eyes wide with recognition. "And Martha? She was my stepmother. She hated me. She wanted the money from my father's will, and she pushed me. You were Martha, Mama." A family, now in crisis, contacted Dr. Jim Tucker, a child psychiatrist at the University of Virginia's Division of Perceptual Studies, who had investigated hundreds of cases of alleged past life memories. Dr. Tucker flew to Kentucky to investigate. Daniel's claims, what Dr. Tucker found, defied every conventional explanation. Daniel's knowledge of Abigail Peterson's life extended far beyond what any child could have absorbed. He knew the names of Abigail's siblings, the layout of the family farm, and even the exact details of a unique silver locket Abigail secretly owned, a locket that Martha had always coveted and claimed was lost after Abigail's death. The investigation took a dramatic turn when Dr. Tucker arranged a visit to the old farmhouse, now long abandoned and dilapidated. As they entered, Daniel immediately gravitated to the central staircase, tracing its banister with his small hand. "This is it," he whispered, his face pale. "This is where she pushed me." He then pointed to a specific step, the third from the top, and said, "I tripped here after her hand, and then I fell." Later, a forensic architect examined the staircase and confirmed that that specific step had a subtle, almost imperceptible tilt, suggesting an old repair or imperfection consistent with someone losing their footing. But the most compelling evidence came from inside the house. Daniel led them to a hidden loose floorboard in Abigail's former bedroom. "My locket," he said. "Martha thought she took it, but I hid it here, just in case." When Robert pried open the floorboard, he found a small, tarnished silver locket with an intricate engraving, exactly as Daniel had described. Inside were two faded photographs, one of a young woman, strikingly beautiful, and another of a stern-faced, older woman. Daniel pointed to the older woman. "That's Martha," he stated. The subsequent investigation, fueled by Daniel's accurate memories and the unearthed physical evidence, began to piece together a horrifying narrative. While Martha Peterson had died peacefully years ago, the locket, combined with Daniel's vivid recollections, prompted a re-examination of Abigail's death. Historical newspaper archives yielded forgotten details. Martha had been under significant financial strain and had been known to be fiercely jealous of Abigail, who had recently inherited a small sum from a distant relative, a fact no one had connected to her death at the time. While no modern legal action could be taken against a deceased person, the truth finally emerged, shattering decades of an accidental death narrative. For the surviving distant relatives of Abigail Peterson, learning the truth brought a profound, if painful, sense of closure. And for Sarah Miller, the accusation, though shattering, slowly began to transform into a complex understanding of a karmic echo, a past relationship seeking resolution. Dr. Tucker's meticulous documentation of Daniel's case, published in several academic journals and featured in his books, concluded that it represented extraordinary evidence for the persistence of personal memories and emotional dynamics across purported past lives, with verifiable specific details that could not have been obtained through normal means, offering a powerful insight into the enduring nature of human relationships, even across the veil of death. The case of Daniel Miller and Abigail Peterson established a new, deeply personal dimension in the study of consciousness. But it was just the first of 3 cases that would reveal the shocking and sometimes unsettling connections between individuals across lifetimes. The second case takes us to a bustling city in Brazil, where a young girl's inexplicable fear of a specific type of car, coupled with vivid memories of being run over, would lead to a chilling recognition of her own father as her past life killer. In 2010, in São Paulo, Brazil, 6-year-old Sofia Mendes developed an intense, debilitating phobia of large, dark-colored sedans. The mere sight of one would send her into hysterics, often accompanied by screams of, "The big car! It hit me! He didn't stop!" Her parents, bewildered, could find no root cause in her current life for this extreme fear. Sofia also began to speak of being a young boy named Pedro, who worked as a delivery boy in the 1980s. She described the chaotic city streets, the heavy traffic, and then, chillingly, the precise details of being struck by a big, black car and dying instantly. But the most disturbing detail was her consistent claim that the driver of the car, though she never saw his face, had the same strong hands as Papa. Seeking help, Sofia's parents consulted Dr. Satwan Pasricha, a renowned researcher in reincarnation from India, who had investigated numerous cases globally. Dr. Pasricha traveled to São Paulo to investigate Sofia's claims. What Dr. Pasricha found defied every conventional explanation. Sofia's description of her previous identity as Pedro was remarkably consistent and detailed. She knew that Pedro had lived in a specific favela, had a specific paper route, and always carried a small wooden rosary. She even described a distinct scar on Pedro's left knee from a childhood bicycle accident, a detail confirmed by an old photograph found in Pedro's family album. When Dr. Pasricha researched the historical records, she found that a young boy named Pedro Oliveira, a delivery boy, had indeed been killed in a hit-and-run accident in São Paulo in 1985. The vehicle was described by witnesses as a large, dark sedan. The case had never been solved, and the family had lived with the injustice for decades. The case took a dramatic turn when Sofia, on a drive through the city with Dr. Pasricha and her parents, suddenly became agitated, pointing to a specific, busy intersection. "This is where the car hit me," she cried, her body trembling. "And he just drove away." Then she turned to her father, João Mendes, and whispered, her eyes wide with a terrifying recognition, "Papa, it was your car. You hit me." João Mendes, a successful businessman, was stunned. He had owned a black sedan in the 1980s, though. He had sold it years ago and rarely spoke of that period. He vehemently denied any involvement in a hit-and-run, claiming his car was never involved in an accident. But Dr. Pasricha pressed. She knew that Joe had worked long hours as a taxi driver in the 1980s, a detail he rarely mentioned. Sofia, as Pedro, then recounted a specific incident Joe had told his own wife, privately, years ago, about a night in 1985 when he thought he hit something, but was in a hurry and didn't stop, dismissing it as probably a dog. The details of the intersection, the time of night, even the weather conditions, matched Joe's suppressed memory. The devastating truth slowly unfolded. Joe, Overwhelmed by the inexplicable connection and the chilling accuracy of his daughter's memories, eventually broke down. He admitted that in 1985, as a struggling taxi driver, he had indeed hit something at that intersection, dismissed it as debris, and driven off in a panic due to financial pressures and fear of losing his license. He had suppressed the memory for decades. He never knew it was a child. While no legal charges could be brought after so many years, the emotional impact was profound. Joao was overcome with guilt and remorse, but also with an unsettling sense of spiritual reckoning. Sophia, having confronted the source of her deepest phobia, slowly began to overcome her fear of cars, and their father-daughter relationship, though forever changed, embarked on a path of profound, difficult healing. Dr. Pezerica's extensive investigation, published in various international parapsychology journals, concluded that Sophia's case represented extraordinary evidence for the persistence of personal memories and deep karmic connections across death and rebirth, with verifiable information that could not have been obtained through normal sensory channels, revealing a profound and challenging aspect of past life dynamics. The case of Sofia Mendes and Pedro Oliveira highlighted the deeply personal and often unsettling nature of past life connections. But it was overshadowed by the third and most disturbing case in this investigation, the story of a young boy in Vietnam, whose memories of a past life would not only identify his murderer, but also reveal a chilling, multi-generational cycle of violence and revenge within the same family. In 2003, in a remote village in Vietnam's Mekong Delta, 5-year-old Long Nguyen began exhibiting terrifying nightmares and an intense, irrational fear of his paternal uncle, Tran Van Duck. Long would scream in his sleep, crying out, "Uncle Duck killed me. He used the knife. He took my rice." Long told his parents that in his previous life, he was his own paternal great-uncle, a man named Tran Van Tam, who had been murdered in 1968, exactly 35 years before Long's birth, during a bitter dispute over rice fields. He described being ambushed by his nephew, Long's current uncle, Tran Van Duck, in the rice paddies, stabbed multiple times, and left to die. He remembered the specific details of the knife, the exact location of his death, and the argument that preceded it. Dr. Jürgen Kiel, the German psychologist who had specialized in Asian reincarnation cases, traveled to Vietnam in 2005 to investigate Long's claims. What he found was a case that intertwined past life memory with generations of family tragedy and a chilling cycle of violence. Long's description of his previous identity as Tran Van Tam was remarkably consistent and detailed. He knew that Tam had been a respected elder in the community, that he had a distinctive scar above his left eye from a childhood accident, and that he always carried a specific type of traditional bamboo flute. He even described a secret stash of gold coins Tam had buried near a specific coconut tree on his property, meant for his youngest daughter. When Dr. Kiel researched the historical records, he found that Tran Van Tam had indeed been a prominent farmer in the village and had disappeared mysteriously in 1968, his death attributed to bandits during a period of conflict, but his body was never found. His nephew, Tran Van Duck, had inherited the rice fields shortly after Tam's disappearance. The case took a dramatic turn when Dr. Kiel arranged for Long to meet his great-uncle, Tran Van Duck, the man Long accused of being his murderer. Tran Van Duck, now an elderly man, became visibly agitated and pale as Long, with chilling certainty, recounted the details of Tam's murder, using specific phrases and intimate family knowledge that only Tam could have known. "You brought the big knife, Uncle," Long said, staring directly at Duck. "You said I cheated you on the rice. You stabbed me by the third rice dike near the broken water wheel." Tran Van Duck, confronted by the child's unwavering accusation and the specific details, eventually broke down and confessed. He admitted that in 1968, driven by greed and a long-standing family feud over inheritance, he had ambushed and murdered his uncle, Tran Van Tam, exactly as Long described. He had then secretly buried Tam's body in a remote part of the rice paddy, confident that the war and the chaos of the times would ensure his secret remained buried forever. The subsequent investigation, fueled by Long's accurate memories, and Tran Van Duke's confession, led authorities to the exact spot in the rice paddy, near a long broken water wheel. There, amidst the mud, they unearthed human remains. Forensic analysis confirmed the remains were those of Tran Van Tam, with skeletal evidence of multiple stab wounds consistent with Long's description. Carbon dating confirmed the remains were consistent with a death in 1968, buried with the Xie. Remains was a small, ornate bamboo flute, exactly as Long had described Tam carrying. What made Long's case particularly compelling was not just the accuracy of his memories, but the fact that he possessed knowledge of a hidden, unpunished murder, and a family secret that had haunted them for decades. The location of Tam's body, the specific details of the murder weapon, and the intimate details of the family feud were secrets that only the perpetrator, or the victim, could have known. Dr. Keel's extensive investigation, published in various international psychology and parapsychology journals, concluded that Long's case represented extraordinary evidence for the persistence of personal memories and karmic connections across death and rebirth, with verifiable information that could not have been obtained through normal sensory channels, revealing a profound and challenging aspect of human justice and family dynamics. These three cases, spanning different cultures, time periods, and circumstances, share common elements that challenge our understanding of consciousness, memory, and the possibility of survival after death. In each case, young children, often without any conventional access to the information, demonstrated knowledge that they could not have acquired through normal means, leading investigators to locations, physical evidence, and shocking truths about their previous lives, often involving traumatic deaths and deep, personal connections to individuals in their current lives. The children in these cases didn't just recall vague impressions. They remembered precise, verifiable information that could be independently confirmed through historical records, forensic reports, and the stunned testimonies of multiple witnesses, including the very individuals implicated in their past life. Death's Daniel Miller, at 5 years old, accurately described his past life death by a push down the stairs by his stepmother, Sarah, his current mother, and led to the discovery of a hidden locket. Sophia Mendez, at 6, relived her past life. Hit and Run and chillingly identified her current father Joe as the driver. Long Nguyen, at 5, revealed the precise details of his past life murder by his current uncle, Tran Van Duck, and led authorities to his buried remains. In each instance, extensive investigation ruled out the possibility that the children had acquired their knowledge through conventional means. They had no known exposure to these specific, often obscure, historical details through family stories, media coverage, or other normal channels of information transfer. The sheer emotional and physical intensity of their reactions pointed to a deeper, more profound connection than mere intellectual knowledge. The consistency and specificity of their memories, combined with the irrefutable, verifiable accuracy of the information they provided, presents a profound challenge to materialist theories of consciousness that assume all mental activity is produced by the brain and ceases at death. Researchers from the University of Virginia's Division of Perceptual Studies, along with other international scholars, continue to explore these profound phenomena. Their extensive research on thousands of cases of alleged past life memory has identified common patterns that appear worldwide. Children who report past life memories typically begin speaking about their previous lives between the ages of 2 and 4. Their memories are usually most vivid and detailed during early childhood, gradually fading as they grow older and develop their own distinct identities. Their memories often focus on emotionally significant events, particularly traumatic experiences like accidents, murders, or sudden deaths. Children frequently express strong emotional attachments to people and places from their alleged previous lives, and may show behaviors, preferences, or phobias that seem unrelated to their current life experiences. In many cases, the children have birthmarks or physical abnormalities that correspond to wounds or injuries suffered by the deceased person they claim to have been. Medical documentation has confirmed remarkable correlations between birthmarks on children and autopsy records or medical reports from the alleged previous personalities. Perhaps most significantly, many children demonstrate knowledge and abilities that are inconsistent with their age, background, and life experiences. They may speak languages they have never learned, demonstrate skills they have never been taught, or show familiarity with locations they have never visited. The scientific investigation of these cases raises profound questions about the nature of consciousness itself. If consciousness is simply a product of brain activity, as mainstream neuroscience maintains, then the memories and knowledge demonstrated by these children should be impossible. The fact that such cases continue to be documented and verified by rigorous scientific investigation suggests that our understanding of consciousness may be fundamentally incomplete. The possibility that some aspect of personal identity and memory might survive bodily death, potentially influencing subsequent lives and even re-engaging with past connections, challenges not just scientific materialism, but our basic assumptions about what it means to be human and the very nature of existence. The cases of Daniel Miller, Sophia Mendez, and Long Nguyen represent just a small fraction of the documented evidence suggesting the survival of consciousness beyond death, sometimes bringing to light the most intimate and challenging karmic truths. Each case, investigated by trained researchers and verified through multiple independent sources, presents compelling evidence that death may not be the end of our story. These children didn't just remember fragments of previous lives. They remembered specific, detailed, verifiable information that enabled them to solve mysteries, uncover crimes, and provide profound, often unsettling, insights into the enduring nature of relationships across lifetimes. Their memories weren't vague or general, but precise and specific enough to lead investigators to exact historical events, identify specific individuals, and uncover physical evidence that had been hidden or lost for generations. The scientific documentation of these cases, published in peer-reviewed journals and investigated by respected researchers, provides a foundation of evidence that challenges our most basic assumptions about consciousness, memory, and the possibility of life after death. As we continue to explore the mysteries of consciousness and the nature of human identity, cases like these remind us that reality may be far stranger and more complex than we ever imagined. The boundary between life and death, between past and present, between one identity and another, and even between victim and perpetrator, may not be as absolute as we once believed. The chilling, almost whispered words of 5-year-old Daniel, "We passed an old house, and my son said, 'This is where you killed me,' continue to echo through the corridors of scientific inquiry. Simple words that opened a doorway to possibilities we're only beginning to understand, and questions we're only beginning to ask. In a world where consciousness remains one of the greatest unsolved mysteries of science, these cases offer tantalizing glimpses of truths that lie beyond the boundaries of our current understanding. They remind us that the human experience may extend far beyond the limits of a single lifetime, and that the memories we carry may connect us to stories and people that began long before we were born.